All right, so if anybody would like to start with their highs and lows, that would be awesome.
I can.
My high.
Oh, my bad.
Oh no, you can go. You can go. You can. My bad.
All right. My high is probably binge watching Naruto every single day, and
Ooh, what episode are you on?
I'm on the I'm on the Sasuke recovery arc.
In the base show.
Wait, yeah, in the original.
Hmm.
Yeah, and lows are probably since I don't have school, like I don't know what my purpose in life is anymore. But yeah.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, I'd say my high is like spring vacation, free time, playing games. Oh, I suck. And then my low would be like going to bed at 4 a.m. and waking up in the afternoon. That would be my low.
Wow. I actually broke that cycle. I've been going to bed early and going to I wake up early too now.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, dude.
My high is setting up a schedule where I go to bed. Like I have to be in bed by 12. Like I can read, but nothing else. And then wake up 7:50, go and work out, and then start my day. So that's been going well. And the low is that schedule sucks. It's very difficult to keep up.
My high is probably just having more time to sleep. I woke up at like 1 the other day. Even I went to bed at like 11 and I woke up at 1, which was not intentional, but it happened. And my low is that even though I don't have school, I still feel really busy for some reason. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's just me because I'm not really doing much, but I feel like maybe it's because my days are shorter because I wake up at 1. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so the next thing is if anyone wants to give us a report on what they did this week and like what their plans are going into next week are.
I can start, I guess. I helped Jeremy create the survey, and then I sent the survey to a few people. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't help create it, but I did send out the survey too. I think 5 people. So, and I'm pretty sure there's 5 responses. So,
Oh yeah, I also did the first part of the Spark curriculum.
Sweet. I did the Spark curriculum, sent in a couple market analysis worksheets to Shaw, who's I guess my and also yours because you're also enrolled in Spark. But we have him as an advisor, met with him twice, and then he kind of also walked us through some of the things that I can kind of go over with our marketing survey. But did that, also got my responses as well from it.
Nice. Yeah, basically I did the same thing. I interviewed one person in person and then I got, I think, hopefully around 4 responses, 3 for sure. And I also met with our speaker for the webinar, which I'm going to be talking to you guys like more in depth about in this meeting. But like currently all this survey stuff is a good segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which is Jeremy, like, could you just talk to us a little bit about like our responses and steps moving forward with the survey?
Yeah. All right. So we have 38 responses right now. And so here's the deal with this. If you can see this, can you see that?
Yeah,
So,
like a spreadsheet.
yeah, so currently this isn't very helpful, although we can kind of take a look at it just to get a sense on like how much we've gotten so far. Pretty fair response, pretty expected as well. Going over here, this is also kind of expected. we were tending to like, I think the assumption for me was hoping to get more of these responses, correlating with more of these responses. But I can touch on later what will be more helpful in relating these two. And then this is obviously short answer. This was actually really nice to see. Having a class on how to take care of yourself. We had a lot of yeses, had a lot of yeses here, a lot of yeses here. Obviously these like are just general big picture responses. So we have to go deep and split it apart to really get anything meaningful. And then right here, short answer again. So basically what I mean by having this be meaningful is, I think I got around 18 responses or so from college students. And so really dividing these responses up for college students and college students, that would be beneficial, because the other people that I kind of went in person for all of these kind of gave definitely different responses, and they're part of a different track than these college students. And then these are also college students, but at the time of the thing they weren't. So I think the job right now is to like have another spreadsheet, maybe like just add another sheet to this spreadsheet and file all these college student, and also probably college student by itself, but filing college student and then high school student, like collecting all of this data, but only from college students, and also this data and also this data. So differentiating between the profession would be important. That's kind of what I got. And then obviously we have our current plan as well of trying to hit, because right now we have a bunch of like school people. And so we're probably going to be fine on college student, that population. We probably need more middle school and high school students. And then obviously getting some more targeted here and here, like just targeted responses is also going to be our next goals moving forward. But Shaw also recommended, I know I'm rambling on, so I can give a bit of a summary after this, but Shaw basically recommended, hey, this is all going to be biased. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter whether or not we make our survey better, it's always going to be biased. So the way we can kind of like use biased results is if we like further divvy it up. And so we're going to treat it as a biased response instead of like just a unbiased response. So if we treat it like a biased response and we say, okay, we only are going to grab the people who are going to take our class, right? That's very biased on that. Like we're going to be pulling people who probably will take our class, right? Because we're going to try and get those. So we know this, basically we're assuming this and we're choosing people based off of this, but then we can test for these. So if that makes sense, of like, we need to recognize that they are biased and pull them as if they are biased, but we don't pull them anymore for these because we know that they're biased in this, but we pull based on these. So we kind of differentiate our population, not based on this and looking at this, but based on their bias response of this and looking at like the rest of these. So if that makes sense, it basically just means we can keep following our plan and making sure that we just collect more and more. So I know that like our target was 5 each, 30 something people. We definitely did hit that target, but at the same time, we want to like go over that target only because like 5 each is not that much, and we really need to start hitting those numbers and over hitting those numbers. So definitely working on that will be very helpful in the future, but we're basically on track. That's what the entire message is.
Nice.
Cool. I was gonna ask, does anybody who surveyed people this week have any like tips on how to reach out to more people?
Yeah, I think, I got in touch with a couple of people at Pitt, like a couple of college professors who work in public health. And I think, one of the things in reaching out to professionals like that is to, be very just be very, informal with the survey. We want to get their, accurate results, but we don't really want to make sure that we're not really forcing them to do it. I mean, this is a totally voluntary thing that they're doing. So, explain to them that, this is going to help us, but at the same time, I think a key is just, to not get too pushy. And I think it's kind of easy to do that, if, people are not necessarily, and if you want to, ramp up the survey numbers, but it's always a good idea just to keep that in mind. These are pretty busy people. They have careers, they have a lot of things going on. So, just being a little bit empathetic towards that can definitely go a long way into getting what we need.
Well, the way I did it was, it was probably not the best way because I was struggling to find people. So basically I just sent it to family members. And the problem there is obviously I joined the organization. So that already says something about me and my family background, and the way I was raised is by people who, at least to a degree, have similar mindsets as me. So honestly, I'm going to say the way I did it is probably not a good way, in that I feel like we need to get people who aren't of a liberal-minded, open to we need people who are less like us, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, Zach, I think, you brought up a really strong point, is to really make sure that you're diversifying, people in the survey. So I think, good idea is to reach out to people that you might not know too well. They might be small acquaintances, you met them somewhere, but, you don't know them too well. To make sure that we're really getting a representative sample, since that's a very important, aspect in us going and sampling.
Cool. I think that's definitely something we can work on in the next week as a group. Just like everybody, try to get as many people as they can. So if nobody has any more comments about the survey, I wanted to move into the next part of our meeting, which is about the vaccine Zoom event, which I haven't been giving much information about that lately. So I sent a link in the chat. I'm also going to share my screen with you all because I think that'll be easier. And I just wanted to give all the information I know to you guys about all the planning that's going into this. So basically, the main focuses of the event are the COVID experience, both during and after infection, and why getting vaccinated is so important as a whole. So basically, our speaker for this event, her name is Dr. Maylin Young, and she works at Allegheny Health Network. And here are some of the things she does. She's a subspecialty education coordinator, and she's in the division of pulmonary critical care medicine. What we are going to do in this event, I met with her last Thursday. We had a Zoom meeting together and kind of talked over what her ideas for an event were, because she speaks to high school students and organizations frequently about healthcare in general, and now specifically COVID. So we were thinking about having a 15-minute in length presentation, which is similar to our first webinar event, because we want to keep it, not webinar event, but our introductory event as an organization that happened a few weeks ago. So the content of this presentation would be what COVID looks like from a professional perspective, what patients experience in a hospital when they have COVID. So this portion of the presentation would be what does COVID really look like from somebody who sees it every single day, and not from somebody who just hears about it on the news and maybe meets one infected person or a few. Another thing that she suggested that I think would be important to talk about is post-COVID syndrome, because that's up and coming in the news, as in something that new findings are occurring in every day. So basically what post-COVID syndrome is and why we should be worried really about it. Different symptoms people are experiencing months and months after recovering from the virus. So those are the two main points about COVID in general. And then also we want to talk about the vaccine. So in this section, she really wants to cover why the risks of getting COVID outweigh the risks of getting the vaccine, because a lot of these side effects that people are proposing could come with the vaccine could actually be so much worse from getting the virus. And so just a general overview of vaccination procedure in general and how the two main right now models of vaccines differ. Just like a quick vaccination overview and why getting vaccinated is important. And then the next part of our event would be an audience engagement portion, which I think would be important. So in this section is where we're going to have some myths about vaccines presented and asking the audience maybe to do a poll and vote whether or not they think a myth is true or false. So for example, like vaccines can cause autism. Do you think that is, that's a basic example, but do you think that's true or false? Have people vote and then have Dr. Young explain about why it's true or false, and just kind of combat or support those myths. And then that's basically the two main chunks of our event would be the presentation and the audience engagement portion. And then we have a question and answer session at the end where we can allow the audience to ask questions. We can ask some questions too. So overall, that's kind of the big information about this event. We are hoping to have it sometime in April. And she says that most of the time, like we just can talk amongst ourselves, maybe have a meeting with her as well about what our plans are, and then we can come up with a date together. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So, and get some feedback about that. So what are your guys' thoughts?
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. I think you did a really good job dividing it up and organizing it to make it really effective for a certain, population that we're trying to target. And, for them to hear about this and, ask questions such like that.
I agree.
Mila, is this just a doc you sent us? I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
It should be. If
Okay.
I have the right link.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I can see it.
brother.
Yeah,
I apologize for my brothers yelling.
you're good.
I do have a question. So when we're trying to get, certain audiences to engage about maybe some questions that they have, some myths, like you said, vaccines can cause autism. How do we make sure that the audiences don't feel embarrassed or pressured to, sort of respond in a certain way? Because I think, it would make it very beneficial to the member if they're really able to put forward, their genuine concerns or ideas.
I have an idea. So we could do the anonymous survey feature that Zoom has to keep things anonymous, even though it wouldn't mean like people shouting out and talk. Maybe we could have like two options. You can shout out and talk, or you can just put it on the survey. And then when we answer whether or not, so let's say for the vaccines cause autism, rather than saying like, no, like and like villainizing them, we could be more like, well, here's where the misinformation comes from, and here's why that's not true, or like that was a faulty study or stuff like that. So like in a constructive and friendly way rather than in a aggressive way, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind as well. We could figure out a way to have the polls come up after a question, especially like the more tech savvy of us. And I think that we can figure out a way to make it anonymous, or as Zach said, have people answer if they are inclined to do so. Other ideas, thoughts, questions?
I think it's a great.
Hot sec.
What was that? My bad.
Sorry, I was saying something to my mom. Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Okay. So, one thing to kind of consider is I think like I have nothing to talk about with the design of the event. I think it's great. But when we're actually going to hold it, I think one thing to consider is instead of going for like a really ambitious thing, really just overestimating or underestimating overestimating the amount of planning that needs to go in is really important. So I think once we kind of get to the point of saying, let's establish this event and let's do it, I think we should probably sit down and really plan it out, because that planning side of things is going to take a while, and like really going and dividing up into a campaign calendar sort of setup where everybody on the team knows, all the logistics is going to be important with this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that having a meeting with hopefully everyone sometime soon, specifically about this and specifically about how we want to go about setting it up logistically behind the scenes, because the actual presentation is not our concern in this case. But figuring out how we're going to go about with our advertising, like we did for our first webinar, we're going to have a meeting about that specifically, where we just, flesh out all the specifics and details behind it.
So you said April, right?
That is the goal.
Okay. What week were you shooting for?
Let's see the weeks of April real quick.
Real quick, my phone's about to die.
Sure.
You need is there anything you want to talk about before I leave the meeting?
Well, I mean, the next thing we're going to talk about is the curriculum. We can just give you some updates if.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
I apologize.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. So yeah, for the weeks in April, I haven't picked a week specifically.
Okay.
I was thinking we should do it on a weekday though.
Weekday.
Overall, we saw from our responses earlier that weekdays, like evenings, work best for people. I don't think that that's subject to change. And yeah, I think that we should do a weekday evening sometime, maybe like, if I'm throwing it out there, like on the fly, maybe the week of the 19th.
19.
I don't know. That might be too soon. That might be too late.
I think that's that's a good date to have it.
I think so too.
I think we want to make sure that COVID is still rapidly evolving. So we want to make sure that our presentation still has a good bit of effect. So I think this is a very crucial time we're in right now. So just keep that in mind when we're planning.
For sure.
I'm honestly in the boat of pushing it back one more week, only because just basing off of the amount of time it'll take us to like plan it all out, probably going to take this week and next week to kind of really bolster it.
Yeah.
And also looking at how we're currently trying to fulfill all of the market interview sort of stuff and trying to wrap that up. I think a lot of our energy is going to get spent on that, especially looking at how well this week went with that. So I definitely do think we'll need a little bit more time. And I'm also not too concerned that COVID's going to be gone, because I'm pretty sure next year's start of school, COVID will still be around and will still be very relevant. So I'm not too concerned about time.
On the other hand, I do think we should try to do stuff as soon as possible. So,
His thing probably died.
Oh no. I think that sort of having the option of doing it the week of the 19th and the 26th and sort of grinding right now over the next week or so, we can kind of figure out whether we want to do that week or the week after. If we plan for the week of the 19th and just push towards that date, but we find out when we're close that we don't have it there, then we can probably move it back a week.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like a buffer, yeah.
Yeah, so we can just aim for that week, and then if that doesn't work out, we can just move it back.
That's a hard thing to do when you're going to plan out sort of how to advertise. Like if we're going to start advertising like 3 weeks, it's very difficult to do something like that. So I do Like we'll probably, we don't need to establish a date now, I don't think. But when we start planning like what exactly, build a campaign calendar, kind of what we did with this. So with this marketing stuff. So after we do that, we should have a pretty good sense.
Yeah, that
Okay.
actually makes sense.
How many people are we targeting? I might have missed this. I was a little bit late, but how many people are we targeting to potentially come to this webinar?
I'd hope for a little more than we had in our first event. I think realistically
Right,
that's
right.
achievable. If we can get who we had in our last event plus like, I don't know how many more people, but more people, then that seems pretty realistic to me.
Are we making a Google form to for like, is it like people saying yes or no?
Yeah, we should do that, and that's gonna come with like one of our future meetings, where we plan it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should definitely do that.
I think a strategy that we could have is this presentation is totally relevant to some of the things that are going on in some of Dr. Kinzer's elective classes, and even some things with like public health and global studies. So if you wanted to reach out to those two individual people and ask them if they have some students who are interested in joining us too, we could get a little bit more of a stable group of people, like stable as in like more precise group of people who we could kind of count on to join. I mean, that was just one idea I had thinking of planning.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Cool.
Okay. So if we don't have any more comments on that, I would like to segue into, is that the word? Is segue the word that you use?
I think so.
Because I like saw a thing the other day that was like segue's not the word. Okay, cool. Confused. I want to talk about the curriculum because our current curriculum is, I'm not sure if that's our goal moving forward for the topics of our courses. So here is the link to that. Hopefully you can edit. If you can't edit, let me know. So basically overall, wait, I should share my screen. Overall, right now, these are our 4 courses. We have a broad medical overview, human health overview, how do you take care of your body as a course. And we saw in the survey that a lot of people were interested in taking that as a course, which I thought was pretty cool. And then we have a US healthcare system course, which goes over the US healthcare system and like how do we enact change in the healthcare system. We have a course dedicated to biology in general and like scientific things. And then we have a research course. So kind of what I wanted to talk about now is, do we need all of these courses? Because if we're refining our focus as an organization to more of like a healthcare and systemic thing, do we need to have like a STEM course or a research course? And what would be the benefits of having those versus would they be detrimental overall?
Yeah, I think we'll figure that out with the market interviews that we're going to be doing. So we'll have a pretty good sense on like what's happening, because like I think this is when we start getting into like the prototyping phase, and that's kind of a little bit far out for us to kind of consider right now. I think it's good to have this sort of in mind as a potential solution, but at the same time, we're not sure even if a class is the right way to go. The data so far that we've collected, which is like we're 1/4 of the way there with our data right now. But with this data so far, it does look like we're on a pretty good track, especially with the applications-based course. But I don't think we know yet, and we definitely haven't reached a point where we can make a decision like that. I don't think yet, because none of like the market interview people that we've interviewed so far have given us really any food for thought that we hadn't thought of yet. And so I think the goal with that is like have someone bring up something that just that kind of challenges our initial beliefs. I think that would be the point where we can kind of decide or like get some more insightful data.
Okay. So I definitely see what you're saying. And like that begs the question, do we want to put a pause on curriculum planning for a little bit? Or do we want to keep going with that? Because I'm not exactly sure where we are and like what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, honestly, we can just bring up on saying this curriculum. I know that this is sort of our prototype that we're kind of going with, but at the same time, we as kind of a starting off nonprofit again, it's a little bit far out there, but it is worth considering the fact that we will need to. I just sent that message of saying it's just one of those things that we can kind of make sure that everybody knows that this is temporary. Not too much planning needs to go into deciding this so far, but it is just important to understand that this is like a potential solution, and that's about it.
Okay.
Is it worth me giving another recap on what stage we're in? I can do that again because that's pretty important.
I think that would be good.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, I want to advertise for FFU Spark Curric again because I'm basing everything that I know off of that. But that being said, we're currently in the second step of any startup business. We have an initial idea. We have a market interview, and that is currently the step that we're working on. So what this means is all cylinders need to be firing off of how do we challenge our assumptions, right? Because our current idea is there's a problem with healthcare. The problem is that people are not getting enough quality care, right? And that is, I can tell you based off of the market survey that we've conducted, that is our problem. And our current solution, it's not in the market survey, but it's kind of alluding to it, is we're trying to do courses on it, right? So just by the market survey, we can kind of figure those two things out. And if you think differently, definitely bring that up after this little blurb, because then we need to adjust some of our market surveys, right? So our current step currently is figuring out, okay, what are the assumptions that we made? Well, we made the fact that the assumption that we're really making is, one, people want to take our courses, and two, that educating people will improve the problem of not enough quality healthcare, right? That's kind of the assumption that we're making, the two assumptions. And so we're kind of double checking that. They might be right, they might be wrong. So the way we double check that is we list out all the populations of people that are affected by our problem and our solution. And we have to go and talk to them about the problem and the solution. So that's a step that we're working on. Right now, the market surveys are pulling, like what we just did by interviewing 5 people and surveying them is mass simple random sample. This is giving us a generalized picture. But then we have to go in and really make sure we hit the 9 populations that we kind of listed out in the board meeting. And I can give you guys a reminder in Slack later, but we have 9 populations that we need at least 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 of their responses in. So that's to really check, okay, are we hitting all the spots that we're hitting? Do we ourselves fully understand our problem and our solution that we're kind of proposing? So it's really doing a bunch of checks, and then we will move on to, okay, let's make our prototype and then do another round of market surveying to figure out, does our prototype do what our prototype is supposed to do? So that's the stage that I think maybe that a lot of you guys might be in right now, but we're actually one step behind in that we're trying to figure out, do we understand our problem? Do we understand our solution? So that's sort of the problem that we are, that's sort of the state that we're kind of in. But it's, yeah. Any questions about that?
Crystal clear.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think that all sounds good.
Sounds great. Yeah. Oh, sorry for cutting you off, Mila. The thing about Zoom is that that's one thing that I don't like about Zoom is it's just so easy to cut somebody off. But yeah, so, yeah, you can continue.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that sounds good. I think it's good to be on the same page about that. That was all I had planned for the agenda of this meeting today. So if we're all good with that, I can do the recap, and unless someone else has something to talk about. If not, then
Yeah, I wanted to add one hot thing. So yeah. So basically, Jeremy, so we said we're going to conduct some more interviews in the community. Do we have like a list of individuals, or have we started reaching out to them?
No, so we have 9 populations. I can pull it up after the meeting, but if you want to stay after. So we have 9 kind of populations that we came up with, that these are the target populations that will be affected by our problem and our solution. So we have those in set. And so we don't have specific people planned out to interview, but we do have their profession. And so it's up to us to kind of figure that out. And the faster we get that stuff figured out, the faster we can be over and move on to the next process. So really, this is about, we have the change. Currently, if I'm being completely honest, I think we could have done better our first week and getting way more of a jump start on this process, but we can figure this stuff out, get a really good start next week, and get a jump start. So if you want, I'll post this into the interview channel on Slack, but if you want to start targeting these sets of population, because I think our SRS, the only way we can kind of improve that is by pulling more like middle school and high school students. But if we can start pulling and specifically targeting these 9 sort of sets of the population, we might be moving more efficiently.
Sure, yeah. Did you say it was in the Google Docs? Is that where you were putting it?
I'll put it into Slack interview channel.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely start reaching out to some people I know, within the 9 populations to really get that going. Yep.
okay. Joshua, we're waiting for you and your filter. It's very important that you have one.
Oops.
Was that Chimner?
I believe it was. You want to see Chimmer once again? Oh, there we go. All right. Now we're talking.
All right. So just to go over our weekly recap for this meeting, the first thing we did was get our reports for what everyone did this week. And basically the main trend in that was that everybody was going around surveying 5 people. And in our survey, we got 38 responses. We went over some of those responses and we found some updates on what people thought of potential courses and just overall trends about how satisfied people were with their healthcare experiences. Our goals going forward are to keep getting more responses, specifically from the 9 populations we want to target that are directly affected by our solution as an organization to what we deem as like the issue of healthcare. The next thing we talked about was the COVID webinar, and I went over the outline for that. Basically, just the plan for that, what that event's going to look like itself. Some things to consider are the potential dates for that, how we're going to gauge interest, and we're going to be having some meetings for that in the upcoming few weeks. And then after that, Jeremy kind of just recapped what our stage is as an organization at the moment, and how we're going about defining what we stand for. So yeah,